Welcome to the show. Uh, you're right. Let's go. Let's get it on. Yeah, we're getting it on. We're doing that now. Welcome. It is your favorite Jackson. Probably, I assume you might know other Jacksons, so maybe not. Uh, and with me today is my host and co-host Peter. I'm gonna go for it. Welcome.
The bumbling buffoon from the Netherlands who can't stream right, as it appears, because
Oh, I think you're
I
doing
start
just fine.
I started off with the wrong screen. I was doing things and you were doing things, and we should have had the waiting screen, and I didn't pull up the waiting screen.
Well, you said I distracted you, so it happens. I'm
With
very
your
distractible.
with your juggling, that was it.
Yes, my juggling. It's always the juggling. Um, Hello everybody watching. We got Ian Debunked, Anthony Ray, Jamie E, Mira DeFalco, Dalton. Welcome, welcome. Uh, no Nestle presently. Maybe he'll show up. We haven't heard from him, but maybe he'll come around and join
Who
the stream.
knows? Who knows?
Uh,
He's also
he's
Dutch,
off.
so
Yeah.
probably not perfect, just like me. Just trying to
Well,
to blame everyone else but me, because that's what we do, isn't it?
exactly. I don't know. Um, but yeah, I finished the Peacock's Tail script yesterday, and I sent it off to him. I know RJ's already looked it over and edited, and I'm waiting on Nestle's edits, and then then it's off to the races on that one. So that'll be fun.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I have I have spicy takes in that video, so it'll be fun.
You and I are so different. I just talked to a young Earth creationist flat earther, which is also fun. But
Yeah.
and 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 I have to say, I mean, he's a great guy to talk to. If you don't talk about religion or science, then we agree on pretty much everything. How we should treat each other, and to me, that's still the most important thing. You can believe whatever you
Sure.
want, but treat other people like you want to be treated, and you and I can be friends, no matter what you believe.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely. And we got Beej.
we
Beej
have Beach.
Price. Hello. Yeah, that's true. That is, yeah, how we treat each other is
I'm not
most
I'm not
important.
sure if Beach was my first subscriber, but she was my first moderator on the channel, and
Beej was there for all of us.
he was there for my show earlier, and I'm actually every single time I see Beach, it means something, because you stick with someone for that amount of time, even when they're stupid and Dutch and they can't stream and do everything wrong. I really have to appreciate that. I love seeing Beach wherever I bump into her. So
Yeah, we love Beej. Beej is one of our favorites. Um, so today we are just continuing with the video. Do you know how much time we have left on this video?
I don't, but I can check.
Okay.
Oh, only 52 minutes, Jackson.
Remaining?
Yes.
Jesus Christ, what was I thinking?
Yeah.
Also, Brian Stevens, hello, welcome.
Hey, Brian. Yeah.
Oh my goodness, what was I? Why did I do this to us?
We did 2 episodes, and we covered 32 minutes and 15 seconds. Well, a little bit more, but I have to go back a few seconds every time we restart in order for people to grasp where we're at.
Right.
Because
Right.
we usually stop when something is said in order to counter that, and then at some point it will also be the end of the show. So it happens.
A lot of our quotes start like in media res, just in the middle of the sentence, something.
And I only had to go back about 20 seconds, so it's not too bad.
So let's see. Today I tweeted regarding this that I'm surprised anyone takes these guys seriously. Michael Behe, Stephen Meyer, John Lennox. because just for anyone who's blissfully unaware, Behe is a biochemist, Meyer is a philosopher, and Lennox is a mathematician. And they are being interviewed by the Hoover Institute, which I guess is like PragerU, not a university, it's a YouTube channel, regarding evolution. And the interviewer asks them, what was the first question you asked? Something like, has evolution become more or less defensible in the years since Origin of Species was published? And of course, they all said, "Oh, it's become less, far less." Or far less defensible. That's why, over 99% of the biologists and Earth and life scientists in general accept that the Earth is old and that life is here as a result of
I'm
evolution.
gonna play devil's advocate and play the part of Lennox, the mathematician making claims that don't add up. Wait, can you do that as a mathematician? But
you have to multiply them if they don't add up.
Yes, but so in all fairness, when you keep it strictly to what Darwin had to say on evolution, we know that he was mistaken on a few things. So technically speaking, they're correct.
I mean, maybe about a few things. Like Darwin thought that dogs came from different breeds of dogs came from different species of wild.
If you discard all science that we have done since Darwin came out with The Origin of Species, then yes, they're correct.
Yeah. Yep. If you discard all the science, yep. Oh, yeah. And Smitty. Hello, Smitty. Yeah.
It's what they do,
the
Jackson.
The funny thing is, we watched previously with the Hoover Institute, we watched a video on, less than 90% of, I don't actually know. I don't know what this exact statistics were. It varied quite a bit, so I'm not sure I'd put a number on it. But regardless, we watched a video previously that was like the mathematical challenges to evolution, and it involved Meyer and David Galerner and David Berlinski. And they didn't talk about the math at all. There was no math. They brought out no whiteboards, or blackboards or whatever. There's no math was done at all. Which I guess in that case, none of them are. No, Berlinski's a mathematician, so they could have done some math, but they just didn't. So, whatever.
I still can't get that image of Berlinski out of my mind.
What do you mean?
The crossbreed between Malfoy and Larry the Cable Guy. I don't know. I have no clue who his stylist is, but
yeah. No, he usually
some people justify the Second Amendment. Let's keep it at that.
Well, a lot of times when he does speaking engagements, he looks very nice. He wears a suit and tie and everything. And so and everybody in that interview except for him was wearing like, a suit. Nice, like an overcoat and whatnot. Except for him, he was wearing the biker jean jacket sort of thing.
I mean, Jackson, I just said it. Second Amendment, the right to bear arms.
Yeah. That's true. Yeah, very true. So yeah, and now let's see. They've really just kind of rehashed Meyer's Darwin's doubt, which we're not doing that again. We've done it ad nauseum. They brought up the waiting time problem again, which we've done that before. Boring. What did they mention? What's his name? Fred Hoyle. Of course, Lennox. His go-to was Fred Hoyle. Microbes created in space. Fred Hoyle. So yeah, So,
in all fairness, right. If you're going to say that we have been talking about this ad nauseum, then we can close up the show because everything that's coming has been done ad nauseum already.
That's true.
Not necessarily by us, but
right.
I stand on the shoulders of giants anyway when I talk about this stuff, because everything I know I've learned from people like yourself.
Well, the thing about the ID guys is they really don't have a lot of talking points. Creationists have a lot of talking points. There are lots and lots of things that they can, pull up and argue about. Intelligent design, not so much. They have a much narrower field of view that they try to argue, and so, and that's things like, organisms appear abruptly in the fossil record, or the waiting time problem, or what's another favorite of theirs, like irreducible complexity. There's not a whole lot else. They don't have that many arguments to kind of level at you. And once you sort of realize that, once you can like kick out the stands from their arguments, that's kind of it. They don't have much else to do. So
I've come up with a new strategy, and I probably that would work with ID proponents as well. I just did it on the show that I just did with Professor Flynn. I just asked, why should we believe the Bible? And I asked it, I think, at least 4 or 5 times, and it's still not a satisfactory answer, because there is no answer other than, well, the Bible says. Yeah, the Bible says something I do not believe currently. Why should I believe what the Bible says? We're back to square one. So if I were to talk to
religion out of it,
well, if I were to talk to an ID proponent, I would say, who's the designer?
Well, they try to shift out of that one. Typically, they often, will say there is a designer, but we're not going to talk about it. Yeah, because, well, they know, they do the, oh, well, I'm not going to say who the designer is. A wink,
Yeah, because
when pretty much all of them are Christian,
then the scam would be up, right? I mean, it would be done and dealt with.
The funny thing is, like, read Darwin's Doubt. Like, if I encourage people, read Darwin's Doubt. The final chapter is an altar call. It's, here's why you should be a Christian. That's the final chapter, because at the end of the day, it's just about getting converts. That's all it is. It is literally just about bringing people to Christianity, and they can try to pretend to be scientific all they want. They can, say, oh, here are all these scientific arguments, but it's really just in service of getting people to Christ. That's really all it is at the end of the day. Which, I mean, that's their business. If they want to do that, whatever. I don't care if you're religious. Just make sure you're doing the science correctly. That's all I care about.
Yeah.
So, all right. I guess we're ready, huh?
I'm going to tease someone in chat. Majestic P back. You weren't in the chat on my show. Shame on you. Just kidding. Majestic P back is someone who's almost always in the side chat on Orange channel. So I think I can make the joke, because I'm not Arn Ra. Not by a long shot. I'm just happy that I get people in my chat anyway.
I'm not tall enough to be Aaron.
No.
Or Genghis Khan enough, I guess.
Piratey enough. Or even Ozzy enough, because he's read the Bible in the voice of Ozzy Osbourne, shouting "Sharon" every once in a while.
Ian, I have not seen your debate yet, but I will watch it. Maybe later tonight or tomorrow while I'm doing stuff. So yeah, I'll be sure to watch that. Actually, I don't know why you're not a moderator yet. You should be. Yeah, it is moderator. There we go. All right, let's do it. Let's get started.
Okay, let's go.
You have to remember that once you start raising the kind of question these two gentlemen have been raising, and that is that there's information, there's code,
dun, dun, dun.
and the looming specter of the possibility of a coder.
Oh gosh,
that raises a crucial problem.
Out of bounds.
Right. That's out of bounds.
That's not science.
Yes,
Yes, I
and
wanna co-
that means that we have to broaden the discussion as to how science is defined.
and of course, so,
go ahead.
well, I just
So
want to
let's
get to
talk about
because I
that for a
promised
moment.
John that
Just very briefly, because we've talked about
Did he say how science is
information.
defined? Did he
I
actually
think
say?
so. I think. Oh, well, yeah, because he's saying if you can include a designer, which is supernatural, then clearly methodological naturalism can't, be the only game in town for science. So you have to redefine basically how to do science. I see what he's saying. But the thing about it is DNA does not contain symbolic information. There are no symbols in DNA. If you ask, yeah, exactly, Beach. If you ask where is the DNA, sorry, where is the information in DNA? Where is it stored? Is it stored in the hydrogen bonds? Is it stored in between in like bond between like nitrogen or carbon or oxygen, the phosphates, the deoxyribose? Where is the information stored? I'm curious to know. I'm genuinely curious to know where this so-called symbolic information is actually stored in the DNA, because it isn't. We all know it isn't. We know that DNA is a molecule. It is a physical molecule that exists, and it is translated as a result in a system sort of analogous to like code in our computers, but it isn't itself code. They are reifying an analogy and acting as though that that the DNA does in fact contain code when it doesn't. It doesn't contain code. DNA is not itself a code. There's no, or it doesn't contain information, and the DNA is not itself information. You can say
I still
it's like there.
so
Shoot, go ahead.
I still think that every single code we know is getting information from one intelligent agent to another.
Right.
That is true for every single code we know. It's not true for DNA.
Right. Right, exactly. Yeah, because they talk about languages or radio signals, letters. These are all codes. Yes, they are symbolic codes that we can use to pass information between individuals, between
Yes.
conscious individuals. There are regular processes in nature that generate, like you can get little like sound blips from like certain stars, right, that occur at regular intervals and things like that, but that's not a code. Right, we don't consider that a code.
Jackson, I have talked to a creationist who claimed that pulsars are actually sending a message from God. That is what they're doing. They're pulsating, so to make us aware that there is a God, and he's put this blinking light far, far away in
Yeah.
I mean, okay.
I prefer Titan Uranus. The meta information of DNA is stored in the quantum nanochakras. I agree. That sounds correct to me. Ian Chen says, everyone loves Bree more than me. You know what? Wrench taken away. How about that? Buddha. Who taught God Morse code, right? Yeah, there's no information, and since there's no information, it is not a code. DNA doesn't operate like a code, and therefore there is no coder. Plus, as we again have said ad nauseum on this channel, we are familiar with innumerable ways that the code, quote quote, of DNA can change through natural processes. Yeah. These guys even talk about it. They just say, well, it doesn't occur enough to do major changes, but you admit that small scale natural changes are possible, and there's nothing inherently from preventing those from just adding up to big changes. So
I'm pretty sure that if we let's take Morse code. If we were to send out Morse code worldwide as a standard, and then everyone using Morse code is going to change just one letter in one specific combination. So the A in and becomes an O. So it's ond, but only in the word and. And we have everyone on the planet doing that. Everyone changing just one thing, and then in maybe a year changing another thing. At some point, your information is going to be garbage because it's no longer going to be working. Which is opposite to DNA, which will keep working, even if there are mistakes in it 9 out of 10 times.
Right. Yeah. Stephen Meyer likes to say that DNA becomes unstable. Or sorry, no, not the DNA. Sorry, he says the protein becomes unstable, the resultant amino acid sequence, if you have too many nucleotide changes. And I don't know what he means by that.
What happens?
I don't think anybody knows what he means.
No,
It's like
I would just ask what happens when it becomes unstable or goes past being unstable. Do humans blow up?
What is
what
right?
What's going to happen?
What happens? It just falls apart? It disintegrates? Like, what does that mean?
Ooh,
and
that would be cool too.
He doesn't ever explain. You know, he never explains what he means by that. And
maybe Jackson,
Professor Dave did it.
Humans become invisible when that happens. So we could be living among millions of people that we can't see.
Yeah, they just phase out of existence.
Yeah, all with unstable DNA molecules. I mean, the idea is cool. That I mean, you could make a movie about that. That would be an astonishing movie. You can.
That'd be horrifying. You know, people have too many mutations, you just vanish.
Yeah.
Maybe that's where we go when we die. Our soul, like
it starts even easier.
Our soul just
when you lose your key, it's just an unstable human who just puts it in another place and then waits until you check the entire house and then puts it back in the place you looked at first.
Yeah. I don't know. None of it makes any sense to me. All right, let's keep going.
Okay.
We would come to this. And that is the origin of life itself. As I understand it, from your work, Stephen, life emerges pretty quickly after the conditions for the emergence of life themselves emerge. It's there from the get-go, geologically speaking.
3.85 billion years is the accepted time.
Okay.
The cessation of a meteorite bombardment of the Earth occurred at most 50 million years before that. A blink of the eye geologically, we get from simple chemicals to a complex, functionally integrated cell with information processing systems and miniature machines.
Okay, so...
Okay, actually, wait, hold on. Is he arguing that, like, life is inevitable? I don't want to put words in his mouth, but it really seemed like that's kind of an argument for like life being inevitable. I don't. What do you think about that, Peter? Because he's like, as soon as the conditions came about that made it possible for life to exist, basically life happened. I don't know. What do you think about that, Peter? You there, Peter?
Oh, sorry. I was muted again. I suck at live streaming today. I have no clue what is happening, but probably my DNA is becoming unstable, which explains all of that. No, I was about to say what Beach Price just put in chat. So they completely forgot about RNA. We jumped from organic materials to fully formed complete cells. And okay, now Jackson ran away, so I have to go juggle and do things. I'll just keep talking. And that was my juggling for tonight. So I juggled. They went from organic materials straight to fully formed cells with DNA.
Well,
at least that's
yeah. I mean,
that's,
he's like oversimplifying it, obviously.
Yeah.
But it seems like he's saying life is like inevitable. It kind of seems like he's saying that.
Well, I mean, according to
Editorializing. There we go.
according to a lot of biologists that I've listened to, they seem to agree that life is inevitable, given that.
Well, yeah, but these
on
guys
certain
are
conditions,
intelligent design advocates.
yes, which would explain that they go from organic material to boom and poof, we had a cell.
Well, because James Tour is in their group, right? And he's like, life can't happen naturally. Life can't arise naturally. And so if Meyer's here saying, life, the conditions for life to exist occur, and then boom, life happens. I don't know. It kind of seems like they're writing James Tour out.
It has occurred to me, Jackson, that when you do things like this and you put three people, three ID proponents in one room, they're going to contradict each other at some point. Because I've never met two creationists who agree on everything, but it's probably going to be exactly the same when it comes to ID proponents. But I still can't see the leap in the blink of an eye from organic material to fully formed cells. And I have been meaning to ask you, so what is currently the hypothesis, the leading hypothesis when it comes to abiogenesis? Is the RNA world still a viable hypothesis? And if not, what is?
I mean, I'm by no means a biochemistry person. That's not my field. I think RNA world is part of it, but from what I've also seen, metabolism first seems to be a lot bigger now. Like there are these processes that are occurring continuously, producing like organic molecules and dissipating heat, and that is sort of the reaction center that eventually resulted in life. But I'm by no means a biochemical person. I know very, very little about that topic. So
I just had to ask.
yeah, sorry, I'm not the person to ask. I apologize.
So we're back to God did it because you can't explain it, therefore God.
Correct. If I personally cannot explain it, God must have done it.
Yeah, it happens a lot. Okay.
All right.
Continue.
Yes.
I was taught when I was going through school, there was the famous Urey experiment. 1952, I looked it up.
He didn't even say the whole name.
If you put in a chamber all the chemicals that were supposed to have been present.
Well, in all fairness, Miller came back and wrote all the biology textbooks. Oh wait, that was a different Miller.
Yeah, was not Kenneth Miller did not do everything.
No. A lot of people make the same
Stanley
mistake.
Miller,
though.
wasn't it? Harold Urey and Stanley Miller, wasn't it?
I think so. But I mean, this is a common mistake. I've heard so many people use the Urey experiment. No clue.
Yeah. Yeah, they're gonna butcher it. However, every time it gets brought up, it is butchered.
It's just like DNA, Jackson. It's degrading over time.
Yeah.
Happens to names as well.
When Earth was at the moment when life arose, and introduced, I seem to remember from textbooks, the idea that there was some terrible thunderstorm. So you mix it all up with electricity. And a couple of scientists, Urey at the University of Chicago, tried this. And lo and behold, somehow or other, they managed to form a few amino acids. They didn't form life, but that's because you have to run the experiment a lot of times. And as I understand it,
well, okay.
Now, again, to the extent that we understand, you couldn't, the more we try to run better experiments than Urey was able to in 1952, the farther we are from actually creating anything that could be recognized as life. Is that roughly correct?
All right,
Yes.
so let's
So
pause
once
there.
again, we
Okay, actually, so his explanation of the Miller-Urey experiment itself was not terrible. Like, yes, you take these very, very simple inorganic molecules, like what was, I don't even remember, like water and salt. Like you throw in, like, oh, you know, you have all the different elements that are involved in life, like nitrogen, carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, phosphorus, sulfur, calcium, iron. You have all these, and basically Miller-Urey took most of those, and they took the geochemistry that was known at the time, which was in the 1920s, or sorry, I think they did that. I think they did that in the 1940s. But they were building on a hypothesis which was put forward by like Oparin and Haldane in the 1920s, which was that Earth had this primarily reducing atmosphere at the very start. Yep, ammonia. Yep, NH3, right? And so building on this model of the early Earth that Oparin and Haldane had come up with about 20 years earlier, Miller and Urey decided, hey, let's test this, because that's what you do in science. You test hypotheses. And they took a bunch of these inorganic molecules and run them through this wet-dry cycle simulation with electricity. And after, I don't even remember how many runs it was. It's been so long since I've read about it. But after, you know, a certain amount of time, they extracted a bit of the liquid from it and had amino acids in it. And turns out, decades later, some researchers went back and read their, you know, did like the gas chromatography or whatever on the liquids again from the original experiment. They found it actually had even more amino acids than Miller and Urey had originally reported. So it was actually more successful than originally had thought. He is posing like a T-Rex. Beej, you are correct. He's trying to scare John Lennox into running away. John Lennox would be the welcome to Jurassic Park.
And he's got light coming out of his head.
Yes. So the point of the Miller-Urey experiment was not to produce life, right? I feel like that's been said by a million science communicators. It was not to produce life, and none of the experiments in the years hence have been to produce a fully functioning, you know, living cell from inorganic constituent elements. That has never been the point. Oh. The point of origin of life research is each step viable, right? Because even with, if you want to liken this to, say, evolution experiments, typically researchers don't try to go the whole gamut from, you know, the first allele, the first mutated allele that arises in this population to a new species all in one go, right? They typically don't do that. Typically, researchers look at different steps of evolution. Okay, so you have mutations that are occurring, then you have the subsequent spreading of those through the population as a result. Oh my gosh, Savage Cobra. You know, then you have natural selection acting on those mutations, on those new alleles, and then you have like the very incipient stages of speciation, and then you have full speciation. So we have like all the steps, right? And in some cases, in very very short-lived instances, like, you know, fruit flies or nematodes or something that has a short lifespan, you can induce, you know, speciation to happen. So you can go from mutations through natural selection to actual, you know, species formation. But in the case of the origin of life, it seems that it took a fairly long time. And so instead, what the researchers are trying to do is test every step to see, okay, we have the elements. Can these form, inorganic compounds naturally? Yep. Okay, we have a bunch of viable mechanisms by which that can occur. Okay, can these constituent compounds form macromolecules, organic macromolecules, under natural circumstances? Yep. Here's a whole bunch of different pathways by which that can happen. Okay. Well, can these, macromolecules, these monomers, can they form polymers? Can that be induced naturally? Yep, that can happen too. And so it's each little step. And that was the point of Miller-Urey, was testing just one step. They were just trying to figure out, okay, could these reactions under this presumed geochemistry and atmospheric chemistry, could this result in organic compounds? And in fact, yes, it could, and it did. So they demonstrated. Now today, if the early Earth's atmosphere was reducing, it was only reducing within the first 100 million years or so. So from 4.6 to 4.5 billion years ago, the Earth's atmosphere was reducing, something like that. But immediately thereafter, it was actually oxidizing. So oxygen, carbon dioxide, these compounds, well, not free oxygen, but oxygen bound to sulfur, so sulfate, and being bound to carbon, so forming carbon dioxide. These compounds are actually a lot more prominent in the early Earth's atmosphere than had originally been proposed. And then it turned out about somewhere between 2.4 and 2.1 billion years ago, you had outgassing of oxygen from the oceans, which started building up the atmospheric oxygen, and the oceans, or the deep oceans, became oxygenated later on towards the Cambrian, so about 540 million years ago or so. But again, suffice it to say, no one's trying to just make life all in one go. There are lots of different pathways by which different organic molecules can form. And it does apparently take a long time. And yeah, life is complicated. Again, they just kind of say, yes, things are complex, therefore something, God, I guess. To them, it's always God. If something's complicated, it's God.
Well, it's even worse, because they will immediately go to, well, but you had to have intelligent scientists to set up the experiment, right? So it is just evidence of intelligence design. And I have to say this, because I think I owe this to the people who are watching. Last week we had someone removed from the chat. Let's put it that way. NP Life Apologist, which I first called non-productive life apologist because of his disrupting of the chat. And then because he kept asking people whether or not pregnant women feel the electricity when the sperm meets the egg, because there's a spark. Well, then I called him Sparky. And immediately after the show, I got an email saying, "Hi, you called me Sparky."
Womp womp.
And I was censored.
Oh, no.
So he's been emailing back and forth, and until I got tired of him, and I said, I'm no longer going to engage with you.
Did you tell him Jackson has final say over who gets to be in the live chat?
Well, I told him that he wasn't censored. I told him that he was disrupting the chat.
I mean, that's true.
Proposing something that was completely irrelevant to the show that was actually going on. And people in chat complained about his behavior. And that is when it's not just you, because I would have done the same thing. Then you just either time them out, and if they then still don't listen, you just hide them from the channel. Because we're trying to do a show. We've got a couple of people in chat who actually come here to watch the show. To have them distracted so they have to go back and watch it twice, obviously that's good for your viewing hours, because you get more views on your video.
Right.
But this is not how we want to get our viewing hours. Right. We want, it also it makes it so people in chat can no longer interact with the people on screen or behind the scenes as we are now, because we keep the video up. And he just didn't get that. He didn't get that.
If he really wants to interject, he can always make his own channel and talk about whatever the heck he wants. You know, Artangelo is another one like that. I don't care. I don't have time for. I'm not going to entertain apologists in my live chat. Either they can, you know, they can come on and they can talk about their ideas on, you know, on screen.
Which is basically what you said just for the show, because I mentioned that there was a guy who wanted to learn about evolution, and you said, okay, if you can bring him on, we'll skip the show for this week and we'll have him on and have a conversation instead. Which I think is great if you have people, science communicators like yourself, who are willing to do that just at the drop of a hat. But I told him, this isn't about you. You made the chat about yourself. That is why you got hidden. But here's the thing. If you want to have a platform for your silly questions, I will be more than happy to host you and to have you on my show, and you can ask anything you like. And guess what the answer was? Yeah, I'm not interested in doing that. No, you want to disrupt the chat. So, okay, that's great. I'm not going to step in and ask Jackson to unhide you. I could unhide him if I wanted to. It's not going to happen. If you can't see reason, then there's no reason for you to be here.
Exactly.
But that was my rant on a very silly email exchange that I had right after the show last week.
Yep. Well, he can stay mad. All right.
Yeah.
Moving on.
Okay.
Have this understanding which is receding from us rather than finding ourselves approaching it. What does that mean?
Well, it means that we're understanding more.
Hold on. I'm so confused by the idea that the more we know, the less we know. Like, they keep saying that. They've said it multiple times. They said it in the last video we watched. They have this idea that because things are more complicated, we understand them less. Like, how is it that by increasing our knowledge of something, we're actually decreasing our knowledge of it? Like, I don't understand how that works. How are we generating negative knowledge?
I think I have an explanation, because they're actually kind of correct.
We realize how much we don't know about it.
Titan, I did see you do that with the freak, and yeah, at times you can just time him out. He's annoying. Okay, so what I was saying. So yes, we do have questions, and then at some point science will find the answer to the question, and then we get new questions, because now we're a step further and we discover that there's even more to discover. So there will be new questions. What they don't acknowledge is that while we do get new questions, the older ones have been answered. So it's not that it's getting worse, it's actually getting better. And as I say that, I want to say hello to our dear friend Neslik, who just joined. So
welcome to the show.
We are.
Sorry, I've completely forgot we had the show today.
Oh, it's okay.
I just came home.
You're fine. It's not mandatory. I won't cut off your fingers this week if you don't show up.
All right.
No, you're fine. Yeah, I know life gets in the way. Everybody's busy. It happens. There's no problem. They started talking about, the origin of life, because that's always where it comes back to. All right. So.
Yeah, we're talking about evolution. So obviously we're going to talk about the origin of life, because
They don't actually care about evolution. They just want to talk about abiogenesis.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So.
Because that's where currently there are more questions than explanations. Although what you said earlier, if you're going to take every single step involved in abiogenesis, and you can prove that every single step could have happened in the conditions that as close as we can get to them after billions of years. But if they can happen, then I think at some point you have to say that there's a good possibility that life arose without an intelligent designer or a creator. Because if it can happen purely by chemistry and physics alone, then there's no need for your creator anymore. Because that's going to add a question you will never be able to answer. Unless he shows up. But he won't.
Professor Dave talked about in a video, or one of his James Tour videos, that there's an experiment in which these researchers basically had RNA molecules, compete against each other. So it was like natural selection, but with RNA, right? So there's no life involved there. And also, regarding the whole but they have to have perfect, titrates and all sorts of stuff to be able to do their experiments. Well, actually, in another video, Professor Dave pointed out that actually some of these experiments happen in in hot springs, right? So take their chemicals and put them into hot springs and see how that affects the reactants. So anyway,
there's another thing that keeps annoying me, because it doesn't matter if you're talking to an ID proponent or a creationist. Life at the beginning was perfect, and then God or the designer made it imperfect for some stupid reason, which also doesn't make sense.
Fault.
Yeah, it's our fault, because obviously, men who are fallible and stupid and know nothing can just easily spoil God's perfect plan, because we're more powerful than the all-powerful God. That's the part they don't realize.
It's actually funny that it's apparently the topic has turned to abiogenesis, because I actually came across a new book about it. It's called Spontaneous Order and the Origin of Life by Stephen Meyer. Okay. And that book is basically a very good. So far as I'm able to read, that I've only read a few chapters so far. So far as I'm able to read, it's a very good summation of another book called The Origin and the Nature of Life, The Emergence of the Fourth Geosphere by Eric Smith and Harold Morowitz. And that book is a very, very detailed, long, jargon-rich takedown of Origin of Life, basically. So that book, the older book, is not good for beginners, but this new book seems to be a very, very readable.
You said it's called what again?
The new one is Spontaneous Order and the Origin of Life by Stephen Meyer.
Spontaneous Order and the Origin of Life. Okay.
Yeah. This new book, and also the older book that I mentioned by the Emergence of the Fourth Geosphere. They take a metabolism first view for abiogenesis.
We talked about that earlier.
Yeah. I think Dave takes a genetics first view with heavily focused on RNA, and he doesn't buy the metabolism first. But that's one thing we can disagree on. But
I also agree with metabolism first.
Yeah, me too.
I don't know. That one makes more sense to me, just because of what life is. Right, life is a constant like stream of energy,
Right.
of energy processes. So yeah, that makes the most sense to me. But anyway, but like I said earlier, I'm not a biochem person. None of my opinions matter, so don't listen to me. So anyway, all right, we ready?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
All right.
For the complexity that was not realized at the time. They thought, I think, that it was just enough to get a few amino acids and hey presto, it would happen. They knew nothing of the linguistic structure. And so what has happened
Except
subsequently is it has
It's not
receded,
linguistic.
as you say, because we've discovered more and more about the sheer sophistication about what life is. And by the way, nobody really knows what life is.
Huge irony is that.
Okay, actually,
1953,
let's pause it for a
another
moment. So I think that's kind of a funny thing to say, is that we don't know what life is. I agree, actually. I do agree. There is no singular definition of what life is, in the same way there's no singular definition of what a species is.
Actually, it's exactly the same subject that in the last few pages that I am reading the book from. It mentions the discussion around the definition of life.
Yeah.
And they define life as the participation in the biosphere.
Well, that's
and the
kind
biosphere, and the biosphere is the biosphere is defined by a particular flux of energy and matter through a particular corner of organic chemistry. Basically, the metabolites of the citric acid cycle in particular.
I don't know,
very,
yeah. Again, that seems kind of arbitrary, but doesn't that also, wouldn't that include viruses though? Because viruses,
viruses are definitely a part of the biosphere. Yes. So taking a view from, instead of looking at individuals and determining whether the individual is alive or not, it takes a broad perspective view on the ecosystem or the biosphere as a whole, and look at the patterns that are continuous across the whole biosphere and also across the whole history of life. And the one thing that it maintains consistently is the flux of carbon through the organic chemistry. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, it's, yeah, whatever.
So life is not. Oh, sorry.
I was just gonna. No, you go ahead.
So life is like the argument that also Eric Smith makes in this book, is that life is not a predicate of individuals. It's a process, as you also alluded to before. It's a process, and individuals are just one kind of pattern that can emerge out of a biosphere. It's not the only pattern, of course. But individuals are still important in the biosphere, certainly, of course. Yeah. It's not individual. It's like, for example, life can be also viewed as a phase of matter, a phase, like in a sense, like analogously, like how a liquid or a solid is a phase of matter. But it makes little sense to describe an individual water molecule as either a frozen water molecule or a liquid water molecule.
Right.
And in the same way, it doesn't make a lot of sense to say an individual is alive or an individual is not alive. In a similar manner, basically.
Yeah, it's a cumulative emergent phenomenon. That's kind of what what's his name? Jeremy England said in Every Life is on Fire, which was not a very good book. I'm sorry. Just read his papers. It probably would give you more information than his book did. But I hope he's not watching this. But basically, yeah, molecules. You can have molecules, and you can like select certain ones to be better at like dissipating energy that they receive from the environment, and that's right. It's the same sort of thing. It's an emergent phenomenon of molecules interacting with each other, which I agree with. And again, that's more kind of that metabolism first sort of thing than really the genetics. I think Dawkins is also kind of a genetics first sort of person, because he's always, I mean, his first book was The Selfish Gene. He's always been like, Darwinian evolution can't happen until you have like replicators and and vehicles and all that sort of stuff. So
the Darwinian dynamics requires the emergence of individuality, and that is also it is a very difficult thing to explain. Individuality, like when does a bulk phase chemistry become partitioned into individuals? Which is also one chapter in the book, but I'm not there yet. It's like the 10th chapter in the book.
I'll have to. So, yeah, I'm very curious. I'll have to check that book out. That sounds really neat. Yeah, absolutely. I guess we can go on.
Well, have you seen what happened in chat? So Vesta Freya said, "What if creationists argued for an unintelligent designer? It would be a much harder case to argue against that position." And Vesta might have a point.
I mean, you could, I guess. Isn't it? Is it the Gospel of Judas that has the what is it called? The cosmology where Yahweh is like a trickster god? Isn't that the Gospel of Judas? I think it is.
That I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, look up. If you look it up, I think Genetically Modified Skeptic did a video on it. I think Apologia may have done a video on it. I'm not positive. I know Genetically Modified Skeptic definitely did. But yeah, Gospel of Judas. I like Smitty's comment. In the beginning, God created the sponge kind, the Nidarian kind, and like 10 worm kinds. I like that.
Okay, so I wasn't there yet, or maybe I. Oh, that's before this one. Okay, yeah, I found it. Well, what I wanted to say is after Vesta Freya said that, Brian Stevens said this is like sitting around watching furfers discuss physics.
Yeah.
And then Vesuvian Doppelganger said, yes, maybe Jackson can learn something if he listens to them. I found that pretty funny. What I did learn one thing, and I don't know if anyone else has noticed. So in this entire video, have you seen that the only one smiling and gloating is Lennox? Because as opposed to the other two, he knows who the designer is. Because he's not an ID proponent. He's a Christian apologist.
Well, yeah, I mean, yes, but both. I know Meyer is a Catholic. I don't know about Behe, but I know Meyer's Catholic.
No, but so Lennox has done several debates on evolution versus the Christian God. So he's obviously advocating for the Christian God, but he's going back and forth in this conversation, pretending that he's an ID proponent, which I just think.
I mean, they're not mutually exclusive.
Well,
I mean, like Turek is just a preacher, but he is channeling predominantly like Meyer and Behe, right? So they're not mutually exclusive. William Lane Craig is kind of in the same camp, although Craig leans more like universal common descent, kind of like Behe does, rather than the weird phylum level design that Meyer does. So I mean, they're all kind of, intelligent designy.
What gets to me is the fact that if you are a Christian, if you debate atheists on whether or not a God exists, and you then sit around these guys who don't want to name the intelligent designer, if you don't go after them in the same way you go after an atheist, then to me you are a dishonest person. I have no other word for it.
I agree, but I think that just kind of applies to intelligent design in general, because
yes, it does.
The intelligence is God. None of them, not a single one of them, I've ever heard say, well, maybe it's aliens. Never, ever, never, ever. Because we all know they don't believe that. And it would be dishonest if they tried to go, I don't know, could have been alien. No, it's not. You know it isn't.
Which is exactly why if I ever come across an ID proponent, I'm going to ask who the designer is. I want to know because if you can't define the designer, then how on earth are you going to tell me that he did anything, or she did anything, or it did anything?
They collectively, by committee. Right.
I think the necessary part is to provide the characteristics or the capabilities of the designer. Like if you have constraints on the designer, you can make predictions. Like like for example, how was Stonehenge made? Like we know that humans cannot lift by themselves like one ball, so they have to cooperate with each other and into specific ways to carry all these boulders around. So then you can make specific models of how Stonehenge was constructed. But if you propose an omnipotent designer, then you cannot make any models from that. Anything can happen.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the weird thing is that when we get an explanation,
it's immutable destiny. Hello.
And when we get an explanation, it's never something omnipotent. I mean,
yeah, that's true.
Not even the statues on Easter Island or the big obelisks in Egypt.
Yeah. Destiny says, is this the whole mathematical impossibility of Darwin thing? Actually, we did that last time. This is another video by the same people on the same topic, essentially. But
and it's the exact same discussion, probably.
Basically the same discussion. There's no math involved at all. They don't talk about the math except for the stupid tornado in a junkyard thing, which Lennox brought up at one point. But other than that, nope. No population genetics. No math at all. None.
The tornado in a junkyard is ironic because the tornado itself is a form of spontaneous organization. So
stop using that logic. Get out of here with that. We don't take kindly to that around here. All right, we can keep going.
Okay.
Experiment, big splash in the media, but you also have the Watson and Crick discovery. And the two things have run counter to each other ever since. Miller and Urey produced 2 or maybe 3 protein-forming amino acids out of the ensemble of 20 that you would need to build a whole protein. But more importantly,
literally the only experiment they are aware of related to the origin of life.
Proteins. To do that, you need instructions. And those instructions were found on the DNA molecule. And it's the origin of the code that has presented the most acute problem for origin of life.
Oh, hold on. No, that's exactly the opposite of the issue. Because if you can produce both the products and the reactants, right? If you can produce both of them naturally, you don't need one to produce the other naturally, then no, the problem has evaporated. Nope, no statistical mechanics, no stochastic modeling, no simulation models, or any kind of publication outlining anything. Yeah, color me shocked. Yeah, no, exactly right. The only math they ever bring up is the waiting time problem, which starts with bad assumptions and so does bad math. And of course, we talked about that previously because it basically ignores that recombination exists and tries to hit target sequences, which is not how evolution works. So, yeah, nope, no math. But yeah, no, this is super weird. It's like if they showed that amino acids can arise naturally, which they did, not under what we now know the correct conditions. Although later experiments have shown that under the correct, or what we think are the correct conditions, amino acids and other organic molecules can still form. Then the problem is less. Right? That isn't a problem. Yeah. So, anyway. All right, we can keep going.
Research, because chemistry simply doesn't move in the direction of informational complexity. It moves in other directions.
One other
maybe because
origin.
it's not
Can't get from chemistry
information
to code.
directed.
That's the
If
problem.
I could just hop in just for
Maybe
a
because it's
second,
not code.
I just add that the process you described, that people were hopeful in the early 50s, and the more they worked, the more difficult they saw the problem to be. That means you're barking up the wrong tree. That's the signature of a wrong idea, because if you have the right idea, you expect future results to support it.
Again, like Einstein.
Exactly. But on the other hand, Darwin thought the cell was a little glob of jello. But the more and more we find, the more and more sophisticated genetic code, splicing of DNA, molecular machinery, and so on. That's for an intelligent design proponent.
Well, hold on. Let's pause again for a moment. So splicing happens because the DNA is supremely unintelligent, right? Because you have these introns, which most of them they don't hold genes. They aren't like necessary as spacers, right? They aren't fulfilling a regulatory role, right? Or at least most of them aren't. It doesn't seem. And in fact, it turns out that introns are descended from
type 2.
With the jumping genes.
Yeah, or something. Yeah.
Transposons. There we go.
I think self-splicing transposons, right?
Right. Yeah, they're descended from transposons, which are like little selfish DNA parasitic elements that are obviously not naturally selected for within our own DNA. They're doing their own thing, trying to replicate themselves. That's not intelligent. That's not what that is. Bacteria don't have introns, right? I think archaeans have like a type of intron, don't they? But it's not quite the same as eukaryotic introns. But splicing, the fact that splicing happens is, from what I've read, is the existence of introns is not harmful enough to warrant them being naturally selected out, but instead it was more beneficial, rather than just selecting them out, to have selection for a splicing mechanism, which is more complicated. So you're adding more complexity to this thing rather than going the simpler route. That's not the hallmark of intelligence. That's the hallmark of dumb or blind natural selection, right? So I don't know. This unnecessary complexity, which is what we see in organisms. It's not just that they're complex; it's that they're ludicrously over complex. You have a pathway which has 10 different enzymes just to get to a few nanometers away, something like that. It's way over complex compared to what we know humans design for things. Humans try to make things as simple as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Are we buffering?
No, I just checked. So on my end,
maybe it's just immutable.
On
I
my
haven't
end,
heard any buffering on our end.
No, and on as far as I can see, we've haven't dropped a single frame, so the stream is going out healthy.
I don't know. It might just be your internet. I don't know.
Sorry, immutable.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, if you lower the resolution 1 or 2 steps and then refresh, that should probably do the trick. It happens at times. It's annoying for people who are watching.
And if you try turning it off and on again, it's just.
Yeah, you can turn it down to 144 pixels, which probably ruins the video. But I mean, I get it. It's Easter, and we've got an Easter egg with a beard on screen, and everyone wants to see it because it's Easter.
It's an egg.
It's an image I can't get out of my mind, and he's a one-trick pony as well, because Every single time they ask him, he's going to go to complexity.
Yep. Complexity. Yeah.
It's predictable.
Yeah.
Icarus says he can't lower the resolution. It's immutable resolution. I find that funny. That's clever.
Got him. No.
Okay, continue.
Yep.
You're barking up the right tree.
All right.
There's another irony about all this, because much more recently, I think it's Jeremy England, dug out the test tubes that were used in the Miller-Urey experiment and discovered on examination that there were more amino acids in them than Miller and Urey had originally discovered. And Dan Brown, the novelist of that time, picked
Da Vinci Code, man.
picked this up in a book that he entitles Origin, and used this to develop his theory of the origin of life.
Holy crap.
Wait, hold on. He took a fact, like an actual fact that we mentioned earlier, that there were more amino acids that they found later through chromatography than earlier. And somehow he didn't realize that's a problem for his argument.
Yes.
And went, aha, but a fiction author used that in a book? Like, what?
I think he's going down the road of they produced all this useless stuff as well. You don't need those things.
So you think so? Yeah. Jeremy
Maybe.
England, American physicist, seems suspicious.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. My goodness. Okay, that's how do they how are they confronted?
The book also had the title, the Bible Code Origins. I mean,
I don't know.
Why would you mention a fiction novelist, Dan Brown, in it's such a it's like Answers in Genesis mentioning Jurassic Park, citing Jurassic Park for the claim that the average dinosaur was a sheep
Yes,
right?
yes, you're right. I forgot about that. Yeah.
And that not only has that happened, but I have seen and heard creationists, to me, citing Star Trek. What was the other one? Star Wars. And there was another one. Citing all of those as counter arguments against evolution. I'm not even kidding.
Mm-hmm. Bizarre. But Destiny's right. Let's see where he goes with this. Let's see what he does.
To which the scientist, Jeremy England, who'd done this work, took great exception. And I think Stephen, being the historian, you'll probably explain exactly what happened.
Wait, he didn't a fiction book?
Again,
that's your
argument?
argument?
It's not making amino acids. It's sequencing them properly. It's like getting a bag of Scrabble letters and thinking you've got a triple word score. You've got to arrange the letters in the...
Note that Stephen Meyer doesn't even look at Lennox and is replying to the presenter of the show, probably thinking, I need to save this. I need to say something that's at least not as ridiculous as what he just said.
I may actually have heard about it. Dan Brown actually mentions Jeremy England in his book, and Jeremy England, for some reason, took issue with how he was portrayed in that book. I think maybe that's what he's referring to.
Well, okay, but even still, let's take that at face value. Who cares? What on earth does that have to do with anything?
Except Jeremy England, yeah. But right.
I mean, yeah, except for him, taking issue with his. With the way he was
portrayal.
I mean, because Dr. Grant's supposed to be Robert Bacher, wasn't he? Or was it Bacher? Yeah, I think it was. But anyways, but it's okay. Aside from that, who cares? My guy.
I see. Sorry, okay, you finish first.
It's a fiction novel. What does that have to do with anything? Go ahead.
Well, in all fairness,
wait, let Nestle finish.
Okay.
Let Nestle finish.
Like from what I can see, like I think that like Dan Brown portrayed Jeremy English character as like somebody who disproves God by showing how life can appear naturally. And of course, Jeremy England, he is a theist. Took issue with that.
Right? Yeah, he is. He's yeah, I think he's Jewish, isn't he?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
I want to reply to chat. Immutable Destiny said Battlestar Galactica. I think that was it. And then Icarus said evolution is a myth. Proof Pokemon. Pokemon was used on Twitter in a discussion about evolution today. In a conversation with me.
I'm convinced.
I'm not kidding.
You don't have Pikachu. Now I'm creationist. Yeah.
Sadly, the guy blocked me, so the entire conversation is now completely disrupted. But it was used just a few hours ago.
My goodness, that's yeah. Also,
I mean, can you believe that you cannot have a Charizard? Can you believe it?
Immutable also makes a good point. Why would they not be able to sequence the amino acids? I don't get that. But also, if we're talking about like, steps, we're talking about steps here. So there would have been, your amino acids, which are monomers. So you would have had your simple step first, and then you go to the next step where you have the linking together of these amino acids to form polymers. It's not all one go, right? I think because again, they weren't trying to make life with this experiment. They were just trying to show that you could get organic molecules from these conditions, and they did. That was the point. Okay. All right, we can keep going.
Can we? After Dan Brown was brought up? Okay. If you say so.
The right way and put them on the board in the right place for them to actually convey information.
One more sudden emergence. Man. The anthropologist.
No.
Somebody, I can't remember whose work I read this in. Maybe yours.
How sudden emergence? You mean like you mean like in the Bible and God created Adam out of the dirt?
Humans, the earliest fossils of humans are about 300,000 years old from like Morocco, I think, if I remember correctly. They're from Morocco, and we know that like the progenitor of Homo sapiens was like Homo erectus, right? Or Homo ergaster, if you want to go with that terminology. So like, what do you mean? What do you mean sudden? We know what the species before that was, or Homo heidelbergensis. That's another one I've heard as being a progenitor. But like, what do you mean? We know who the ancestor was. Oh my God! What are they talking about? What are they even talking about? Okay, let's keep going.
Maybe yours. Anyway,
probably not mine.
John Hawkes is an anthropologist, and he argues that about 2 million years ago,
way before humans,
just appears. Quoting Hawkes, no gradual series of changes in earlier Australopithecine populations clearly leads to the new species, and no Australopithecine species is obviously transitional. Close quote.
Okay, probably. So what I'm willing to bet he's talking about is he's probably saying there is or we don't know what the direct Australopith ancestor of Homo was, which as of right now is true. We don't know. The closest Australopith to Homo is Australopithecus sediba, which is more closely related to Homo than it is to other Australopiths. Mm-hmm. It actually has more characters in common with Homo than with other Australopiths. So it's more closely related to us than like Australopithecus afarensis or africanus or anamensis, right? But it's probably not directly ancestral. I think Lee Berger wants it to be directly ancestral, but I don't think most anthropologists agree with that. So yeah, I think that's probably what he's saying. but you know, I could be wrong. I don't know the quote. Jamie E, get on the quote. Figure it out, please. Anyway, you guys have anything on that?
Did they show the actual quote, or don't they?
Well, he showed a quote. I mean, he showed that which he said. I don't know if they were like
on screen, like they showed like a screen. Like I missed that. Sorry.
It was very briefly up there, very very briefly.
Maybe you can track down that quote then. Like
in entirely unrelated news, Neslik, have you seen the terrible news that has come from the Netherlands today?
Today?
Mm-hmm.
Like I have seen some terrible news like a few days ago.
Boquito.
There was like a major derailment of a train. So
that too. That was 2 days ago. No, today.
Yeah.
It was in the news that Boquito has passed away. For people who don't know who Boquito is, he was a silverback gorilla kept in a zoo in Rotterdam. Made the news a few years back because a woman visited the enclosure and stared directly at him. So he broke out, and let's say he taught the woman that she shouldn't stare at him because that's not what is acceptable in gorilla terms. But the reason I mention it, in every single article, Boquito was remembered as being a great family man, which is kind of weird, right? If you're talking about an ape being remembered.
He's a family guy.
He was a family man. He brought the family together. He even got a young gorilla that wasn't part of his family accepted by the other family members, which was extremely rare in gorilla families. So, and he only got to be 27, whereas gorillas in captivity normally get to anywhere between 40 and 50 years old. I think it's a sad thing that has happened. We even got special glasses. We got special glasses that were made for the zoo that you could put on. If you wanted to look at Boquito, you could put on glasses that had painted on eyes that looked away.
Okay.
The famous Boquito
Dalton
cakers.
says, don't stare directly at most animals, to which Nestle said, I don't stare directly at most humans either.
Yeah.
I like that. So they found, Bitcore's found the article, Population Bottlenecks and Pleistocene Human Evolution. Very nice. But I'm willing to bet that he's referring to like the fact that we don't have a direct Australopith ancestor of humans as of right now. That's what I'm betting he's referring to. So anyway, that is very sad news. But
Jamie has come through with the article.
Yes. Okay. All right, let's keep going.
Okay.
Well, we don't seem to have descended from apes. Or at least if we did.
Not at all what he's saying, actually.
What does that tell us? It's one thing to say, well, where did the dinosaurs come from?
Oh, no. I think I know what he's talking about.
Textbooks in school on humankind arising from
We've all seen the artwork, right?
All seen the artwork. So what does this tell us?
Well, it's another example of an abrupt appearance of morphological innovation in the history of life. There are two such big bursts of innovation in the history of mankind.
No,
the first
we're not
is
doing this
the sudden
again.
emergence of the genus Homo. The second is what's sometimes called the cultural Big Bang, the evidence of higher cognitive capabilities that occurred within the last roughly.
Hold on.
Actually, we'll talk about this.
I'm just an amateur, and I know absolutely nothing on this particular topic. Is the sudden emergence of the genus Homo, that doesn't mean that they were humans, right? Hence
They
the
were
name,
Homo sapiens.
but not Homo sapiens sapiens, right?
Right. I mean, the earliest Homo was like Homo habilis and Homo rudolfensis. They were the earliest Homo, and they were much more like Australopiths in terms of their brains, in terms of like their brain case and their jaw structure and everything, their facial prognathism, than like us.
Yes.
Right. They had
But
their faces
Meyer,
were more prognathic. They had smaller brain case and all that.
but Meyer makes it appear as if when the genus Homo arose,
Yeah.
that was the first human. So the first human, the Homo sapiens sapiens. Because the people who are watching this are not going to make that particular distinction. And even less in the way he just said that.
It's first the quote, which is obviously a quote mine, to which the guy, what do we call him? What did we say his name was last time? Bob, wasn't it like Bob or something? Did I say like looks like a Bob or something like that? I can't remember.
Something like that. I can't remember the
something like that. But yeah, or Steve? No, is it Steve? I don't know. Anyway, the interviewer. The interviewer said,
"No, the interviewer was Bob." Yeah.
Yeah, the interviewer was Bob. Okay, so Bob said, just because we don't know what the direct species that gave rise to Homo was, therefore humans are not apes. Like, how do you make that leap? Like, we don't know what the direct species ancestor of the African elephant was. Does that mean it's not a mammal?
Actually, there is something else that he is referring to. Like, I now remember John. Like, I think I was already familiar with John Hawkes. Like a while ago, John Hawkes wrote an article.
Okay.
Arguing that basically anti-cladistic logic. Humans are not apes, and apes is not. It's just an English word, so it's you cannot apply rules of taxonomy to that word, and that's basically the argument that he made. He thinks like ape is like an informal term, like fish. Like, oh, you cannot say humans are fish because
it's paraphyletic.
Like, yeah, it's he thinks it's a paraphyletic informal group, basically. Yeah.
Okay.
That's different. I mean, that's a very different argument from how they are portraying his position. So it's still misleading to say that he doesn't believe that we are related. Sure. Yeah.
Sure. I mean, well, yeah. Obviously, because he's an anthropologist, and they're taking this one single sentence and being like, "Aha, yes."
He still believes that we are related to chimpanzees and such. Like,
of course, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I still disagree with this argument about cladistics. Like, but still, it's regarding this issue about our relatedness to chimpanzees. He does not disagree that we are related to the other apes.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I have to clarify one thing.
Yeah.
So Jake Nelson just said, I think Peter might be wrong. Anyone watching this now probably would make that distinction. I was talking about the people this video is aimed at. It's aimed at predominantly Christians, and predominantly in the Christians, the young Earth creationists, and they would not make that distinction, I think. So that was basically my point. But they have given me a great argument. So if you can't tell me what the dirt that God used to create Adam was made up of, then it didn't happen. I want the exact composition of the dirt that Adam that was used to create Adam, because by their own logic, if you can't come up with that, it didn't happen. We have more evidence for humans evolving from apes than they would have on the composition of the dirt.
Yeah. I don't know. This just seems so. The response that they gave was so dishonest and disingenuous that it's crazy. So on the one hand, yeah, humans did not just appear out of nowhere. We know which genus is directly ancestral to Homo. Well, I'll let you go, and then we'll talk about the cultural.
Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you. Let you finish. I also found the specific line in the paper that about Australopithecines being transitional.
Okay.
But do you want me to read it?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Okay, I read the whole paragraph. If we assume these earlier Australopithecines are a group of very closely related species, also one thing. This paper is from 2000, the year 2000.
Mm-hmm.
Keep that in mind.
23 years ago.
Yeah. So if you assume the earlier Australopithecines are a group of very closely related species, for instance, nearer to each other than Pan and Homo, we can expect that they differ much more in allele frequencies than in the presence of or absence of specific genes for these features. Therefore, a reshuffling of existing alleles could result in the frequencies of features we observed in the early Homo sapiens. Thus, our second question is about the reshuffling, whether early Homo sapiens is a consequence of rapid speciation with significant founder effect, or the result of a long, gradual process of energetic change. The first explanation, cladogenesis, is suggested by the fact that no gradual series of changes in earlier Australopithecine populations clearly leads to the new species, and no Australopithecine species is obviously transitional. Mm-hmm. So what this is actually saying is the pattern appears to be more cladogenesis and not anagenesis. That's it. It's not like by opposite not transitional. It doesn't mean that there are no transitions. Ironically enough, like I will take issue with the fact that he uses this specific word there, but the context clearly explains that the point of discussion is cladogenesis versus anagenesis.
Well, you can't just go giving context like that, Nessa. You're going to make them look bad, you know.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's a quote mine. Obviously, you know, all the quotes that they bring up are quote mines. Why would they try to be honest when they can just lie, you know? So
I'm going to steal what Majestic P. Beck just put in. 60% horse shite, 20% holy toe jam, 15% spit, and 5% bad breath. That sounds about right.
So let's talk about briefly for a moment here the the so-called like cultural revolution. So we did talk about this in a video we did. Oh, it's been a while now. It's titled "The Cro-Magnon's Tale." Cro-Magnon is also a dumb name. Don't use it. So in the Cro-Magnon's tale,
except if you say filet mignon.
the crow filet mignon.
It's French, so yeah.
Yep.
That was the first recipe based off of the Cro-Magnon.
Yep.
I wonder if they ate mammoth meatballs. I wonder if they ate that.
Oh no, Erica released a video about that today. It's something.
Yeah.
So with
AIG didn't like it. It's not going to be served in the AIG cafeteria, the mammoth meatball, which you'd think they would jump on.
Yeah. So the idea behind the Cultural Revolution is that, was that it's also been called the Great Leap Forward, I think is the terminology that Jared Diamond uses, the Great Leap Forward. And it seemed that humanity underwent this rather rapid sort of cultural shift from no art and very little symbolic messaging to lots of art, lots of symbolic messaging very quickly. At least so it seemed. Well, it turns out the more that researchers kind of go in archaeology and anthropology, the more that they uncover. Turns out actually art and symbolism go back way further in time than they originally thought. And Homo sapiens were not the only species doing art. Neanderthals were doing it too. Maybe Denisovans were also, probably, but we don't have a whole lot of fossils of Denisovans. But we know at this point Neanderthals were also doing art, or at least have a pretty good idea.
I think like it's like Homo naledi, I think, right? Like
they were doing fire.
That, and also they may have probably they also buried their death in rituals. Which is about that's still controversial, I think, or not? Like they were buried very deep in the cave, and
right.
So the only way is basically like they repeatedly came back and buried their death there. Basically, it's
right. It was there wasn't a cave in. It was like that when they were shoving bodies in there. So they knew they were putting these bodies away right in this area, which is a ritualized thing.
It's symbolic thinking still,
right, and so
put somebody in a resting place is very symbolic and artistic, in my opinion.
Sure,
it would qualify.
So the idea that like humans just quickly culture was suddenly instilled in us, the imago Dei was just dropped on us. That doesn't really seem to be the case. It seems that other Homo species did art. To what extent, we have no idea because culture fossilizes very poorly. But we do have inklings of ideas that this was going on in other species. And so, and we know humans now, or we know now that humans were like sharing things, were trading with Neanderthals and vice versa, right? So you get this exchange of like tools from different between our species. There maybe in like a geologic sense the cultural revolution was fast, but culture changes a lot faster than biological entities do, so I'm not very surprised by that. So, but of course underlying the cultural revolution would have been some sort of biological shift, maybe in our neuronal circuitry or something like that. But anyway, you guys have anything you want to add on that?
One thing.
I do.
Go ahead, Nestle, if you have something.
Oh, like maybe there is one research I like. I forgot his name. Robert Sapolsky. Like he does a very good lecture.
Yeah, Behave. He wrote Behave.
Evolution of behavior.
Yeah.
It just dawned on me. I'm currently binge watching the TV show Bones. Have you ever watched that, Jackson?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Do you recall the episode where I think this was a guy who gathered fossils for young Earth creationists and then brought them to America and sold them.
I have not seen that episode.
Well, in this particular episode, he had found some bones and was killed over it. Turns out he had found the bones of an interspecies family, humans and a human woman and a Neanderthal man with a daughter who was part human and part Neanderthal. So,
well, we know that happened.
We know, but here's the cool thing.
And he was killed over that?
He was killed over that because he didn't want to sell the bones to creationist ministry anymore, and that's why he got killed, because they had paid his dig in Ukraine.
Interesting.
But the fun fact is
the actor who acts the perpetrator looks inconspicuously like Ken Ham.
Yeah.
Well, the fun thing is, as we just discovered, that you can actually use fictional stories to confirm your story. So if I ever run into John Lennox, I will counter his Da Vinci Code with my bones and see who wins, because I've got the better video. I have the actual bones.
Ken Ham is like dozens of paleontologists laid down by me in fossil Lincoln all over the
All over the world.
All over the world, yeah.
Lay down by water.
With a shovel in hand.
All over the world. Yes, Beach. It was in Ukraine. So
very topical. But actually to that we know now, that Homo sapiens, because we've sequenced both the Denisovan and the Neanderthal genome, that Homo sapiens possess differing amounts of Denisovan and Neanderthal DNA. So we carry them with us, as well as some other unknown hominin species down in like Melanesia. There are these sequences that are from some other species that interbred with them, and we just don't know what species it was. We have no fossil record of it, which is kind of wild. So
it's another like things like that. It's another indication of how little we actually know from fossils. Like the fossils are great whenever we have them, but they are a very, very poor record when you think about it.
Jackson,
Right.
I'm going to play devil's advocate again. You now propose the species that we have no fossils of. Obviously, they're just fictional.
So actually,
were you there?
Those do exist. Those do. There are. I can't remember what the term for it is, but there are reports of species, and nobody knows, or nobody has found fossils of the animals, but people have made descriptions of the animals. Hold on, let me see if I can. There's a term for it.
Oh really? Oh, nice. I didn't know that.
Well, this is potential species or hypothetical extinct species. Hypothetical species. So the Réunion swamp hen. So I get people who came to the island to Réunion back in the 16 and 1700s, recorded these birds, but we have no records of these birds outside of their firsthand accounts. And there's a bunch of animals like that where it's not something crazy like the chupacabra or something. It's like a bird that it's just some normal species of bird, right? But we don't have any record other than somebody's account of it. So
if I'm not mistaken, something similar happened on Madagascar, where there's a legend of a creature, and it may refer to a giant lemur that is now extinct, I think.
Oh, like Megalodapus? Yeah, I don't know, maybe. So. But yeah, there's lots of stuff like that. I mean, I'm not surprised. Species just go extinct sometimes due to hunting, and so these animals, which are totally.
Could these be dragons?
Right? Could these be dragons? Yeah. So these species, which are totally understandable and probably did exist, just got wiped out by people. It happens. So I'm not at all shocked by that. But yeah. So anyway,
it's a legitimate form of cryptozoology almost.
Basically, yeah, right. Yeah. It's as close to cryptozoology as I'm comfortable going. Yeah. So
which reminds me, did you say because you just mentioned species being driven to extinction by humans? Did you see the PBS Eons video on the dodo?
No, but actually, fun fact: the next video in our series is the dodo's tail. So once we do the peacock's tail, it's the dodo's tail.
Are we going through every bird, or what is it about?
No, it's the dodo's tail. Then hold on, I have the list. I can just read the list. We have the technology.
And the list continues to roll down the floor.
So it's the peacock, the dodo, and the elephant bird. Those are our only birds.
That's not enough, because the Bible clearly speaks about several kinds of birds. So you need to cover all the kinds. And the reason Peter, the reason I mentioned this video is because if you're going to watch this video, it's pretty devastating for the young Earth creationists who like to say, well, they lost something. Turns out that the dodo was actually pretty well adapted to the island it was on. And had and had some unique capabilities in order to survive. So I urge everyone to go look for that particular video. And
so Peter,
I have one more thing. That I need to say, because usually I hope that stupid people will watch your videos, Jackson. For this one, I have mixed feelings, because Bitcore's just put in Christians pushed Putin to bomb Ukraine in hopes to destroy other Neanderthal sapien hybrid fossils. I'm pretty sure I'm going to see that somewhere in the near future.
This is where the rumor starts.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, so for the rest of the series of the Ancestor's Tale series, so after the Peacock's Tail, which is the one we're working on presently, we have the dodo, elephant bird, salamander, narrowmouth, axolotl, lungfish, coelacanth, leafy sea dragon, pike, cichlid, blind cavefish, flounder, lamprey, lancelet, ragworm, brine shrimp, leafcutter ant, grasshopper, fruit fly, rotifer, barnacle, velvet worm, jellyfish, polypifer, sponge, choanoflagellate, cauliflower, redwood, hump bladderwort, mixotrich, rhizobium, and tack, as in tack polymerase. Those are all the episodes we have left. We have 34 tales remaining.
Quick question: is Nestle going to help you with the? Is Nestle going to help you with the dodo script?
I don't know.
Yeah, of course. Nestle, is on all the.
Great. So finally, a Dutch guy can redeem himself for driving the dodo into extinction.
I thought it was the Portuguese that drove the dodos to extinction.
I'm pretty sure it was the Dutch. I'm not sure.
I did not know that.
Who was the writer? There were two brothers. One was entirely into porn. The other one was a well-established writer,
of course,
who traveled around the world and actually did make videos about science. I forgot his name.
There went our monetization. Is it the Greens? Is it John and Hank Green?
No. You can actually say that once, but if you repeat it several times, then you might be demonetized. YouTube has changed their terms of service. You can actually say shit and fuck now, and you're not.
You know what? Anyways,
have you?
Let's not try
citing. Hold on. I'm citing a video from YouTube itself. To me, it was the most amazing video to watch, because there are far worse things you can say. I just named the few that the two that are most common, but you can go far worse and still be monetized, which is.
How about let's not test it?
They said it.
Let's go for
the fact they said it in the video is just. I have no clue where that came from.
All right, let's get maybe like one or two more in here before we call it quits.
Yeah, any idea how much we have covered so far?
Probably not very much.
7 minutes.
Jesus Christ! Oh my goodness.
40,000 years.
Okay.
Homo is 2 million years ago.
Right. You get Homo erectus, but in the last
Homo would include Neanderthal and.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, but within the last 40,000 years, you get the first agriculture, you get the first cities, you get the first written language, you get the first representational art, and so this is another big bang of innovation. Suddenly, the cultural revolution also occurs very suddenly.
Okay. Is it a problem for
Again,
Darwin?
When you say suddenly, you mean tens of thousands of years.
What series of adaptative advantages could possibly have produced all those cantatas?
Well,
actually,
mathematics
or language, the origin of language.
So actually, let's
completely
pause for a moment.
unexplained on Darwinian grounds.
Let's
Noam
pause.
Chomsky, the great linguist.
Oh, actually, well, oh man, he's bringing up Noam Chomsky. I love Noam. So actually, these ideas, all of these ideas, are probably like incidental byproducts, but to some extent, they do have um, selective value, right? Being able to do mathematical calculations, maybe not like calculus, but being able to throw a spear, like you see a target running, you do the calculation in your brain for how hard you have to throw the spear and in what direction to hit the target, right? Those are mental calculations you have to do. Now, so on that scale, yeah, you're actually doing some math, right? So that is selectively beneficial. Oh, Jake Nelson says, Nestling 20, tell them if you ain't Dutch, you ain't much. But most of most of these ideas, like philosophy, romance novels, all this sort of stuff, this is all incidental, right? So actually, in the script for The Peacock's Tale, we talk about this thing called the cultural drive hypothesis. So the cultural drive hypothesis, again, talks about how you basically have, so there would have been selection for individuals to be able to hold more ideas in their head. So maybe, the men that could woo females, they were able to hold more concepts. They could fashion tools more efficiently, or build shelters more efficiently, or something like that, or hunt more efficiently, whatever. But they can do these things. They can hold more ideas and better ideas than their congeners. And so there was selection for this by females. There was female mate choice, and so we talk about that. Well, no, I agree. I mean, I'm saying you're doing responding to Immutable. I agree. It's not. They're not doing like algebra. They're not consciously doing it, but there is some degree of being able to do math, like unconsciously, that you have to be able to do, or else you wouldn't be able to hit the target. I don't know. But obviously that doesn't explain like algebra or calculus or something like that. Like I said, I think those are incidental. They're as a result of being able to form ideas, and being able to hold more ideas is a result of having increased neuronal circuitry, right? And there are different hypotheses for why our brains got bigger, but not here nor there. We also talked about that in in the Handyman's Tale, which is about Homo habilis. So I think we'll do one more clip and then we'll call it.
Do you want to address the claim that Meyer just made about language, that the theory of evolution doesn't explain the diversity in language?
Oh, he just did.
Well, he wasn't. I think he wasn't finished. He was about to. He said Chomsky ... So I want to hear what the end of that is, and then we'll respond to that.
Okay.
All right, so now we begin. We're getting to this subject, which I've been trying to hold off.
Wait, he just dropped it.
Getting close to this notion of intelligent design.
Wait, hold on.
2 images.
Peter, pause. He dropped it. He dropped the topic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He said Noam Chomsky, the famous linguist, and then Bob cut him off and then went to something else.
I think I know why, because Noam Chomsky is a communist, I think, right?
Communism for the win.
Maybe that's why, a dirty commie. That's why, but that's why I don't want to go there, I think.
Noam Chomsky he's such a polarizing figure in like all of the fields he's in, which I think is really funny. Because he's a linguist. He's a linguist by trade. That was his like doctoral thesis was in linguistics. And he's a philosopher, and he does like history. And in every single one of those areas, everyone either like hates him or loves him. I swear. It's all of those different areas. He's completely polarizing. It's really funny. I happen to like him.
I have to ask. So could you actually say that Chomsky was a cunning linguist?
Yes.
Sorry.
Yeah.
The reason I wanted
I like how
the reason I wanted to bring it up because obviously, and this is why we have Gloating Man on screen right now, because he just heard something that he loved to hear. Because obviously, according to him, God confused the languages in the Tower of Babel. And,
right. Yeah.
And earlier today, I had a Young Earth creationist on my channel, and we were talking about the Bible. If God had actually done that and had confused the people by giving them different languages, why did he not provide all of those people with a good Bible, which would have prevented all of the versions we have now for just for English alone? It doesn't seem to add up. That's what I would ask this particular mathematician.
Also, from Jake Nelson for $10, just got a tasty bonus, so I'm sharing it with people who deserve it. Jackson, Peter, Nessel, you guys rock. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Kind of you, Jake Nelson.
Thank you.
Did not have to do that. Thank you. Smitty says, I like Chomsky from what I know of him, mostly for political stuff. Yeah, I like Chomsky too. I'm a big fan. I think Manufacturing Consent is going to be the book that he's remembered for. It is a really, really good book. It was first published in, I think it was 88. It talks about like the, Vietnam War. It talks about American intervention in Central and South America, which was terrible. And a bunch of other stuff along those lines. Really, really good book. Highly recommend. Another good book by Chomsky is Requiem of the American Dream, which is kind of like a summary of Chomsky's works. Like he talks about like manufacturing consent and all these different things that are basically making American life harder for making life harder for individuals in America, right? So that the rich get richer, the poor get poorer. There's it's like a police state, and there's all this other sort of stuff. So yeah, he's really good. I like Chomsky stuff. I think he doesn't always have correct takes on everything, but he's human, aren't we all? We're all human, so we have bad takes occasionally, except for me, of course. I always have the correct take. So on that note, we're gonna close out for today. So guys, anything coming up in the future for either of you?
Not that I can tell, but I'm doing great myself.
Nice. What about you, Peter?
Yes. So on Saturday, there's not going to be a Blasphemer's Bible, at least so far. There's not going to be one. Arn did offer the idea to do a Blasphemer's Bible from his hotel room because he's traveling. But I don't know if that is actually going to happen because he'd need a fair bit of bandwidth in order to do the show. So I'm not sure if that's available in every hotel. So I think we concluded that we weren't going to do anything. So at the time that we would normally do a Blasphemer's Bible, I will have two people from the panel, Mighty Chicken and the Young Earth creationist P-Town, and they're going to have a chat on my channel, and I get to be entirely silent, unless they're going to fight profusely as when I would need to step in. But I don't think it's going to be necessary. I think it's going to be a good conversation. But and another thing, if people are interested, P-Town will be going live about now. I just checked on YouTube, and a certain YouTuber from the nether regions of the world, aka Netherlands, might show up on that stream, providing his co-host is there, a guy called Power Word. And I will crush his power with an article that P.Z. Myers did on a certain paper about prayer, healing, blindness. So if people want to see that, the channel name is actually kind of a giveaway. It's youtube.com/@dumpsterfires.
Well, what's the channel called? Pita?
youtube.com/@dumpsterfires.
So let's see. I think on this channel, the only thing we've got really coming up is the Peacock's Tail, which should be coming out relatively soon when I get a day off, which is never. So then we'll have this show again next Thursday. So
you barely have time to do.
To look forward to.
You barely have time to do this. I mean, we've had to postpone several times because work got in the way.
That's true. It does happen. Yeah.
With doing important stuff.
So yeah. So well, thank you everybody for watching, and thank you. We appreciate all of you guys being here today. So we will see all of you next time. So bye, everybody.
Hold on. Providing there won't be a young Earth creationist messing everything up and taking over the show, right?
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how that.
It is possible that he might show up next week. So, want me to close out?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. All right. Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.